Hello and welcome back. My name is Erin L. Ferguson, and this is my video series about creating the art for a 2D video game. And I hope your day is going well. Mine started really early. My son woke up at like 4:30 this morning. 4:30 a.m. Like 4:30 in the A-est of M's. He woke up for no reason that I could tell. He just wanted to look at the moon. He woke up and of course he had to wake everyone else up because that's just how he operates. So anyway, I've been up for a long time, so my game plan here is to finish this video and then go take a nap before I have to go pick him up from school because I need one like bad. It's about just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that, like, I don't know about you guys, but I get super sleepy usually around 2-3 o'clock. And because I was up since 4:30, it's already hit, like, that sleepiness is here, and I need to do something about it, like, bad. But anyway, enough about my, sleep deprivation. What is on the Cintiq today, you may be asking? Well, it may look like a pirate ship, and that is sort of kind of true. I'm actually doing, like, a piratey sort of themed mansion. So I talked about it a little bit, I think, in my last video, but we are working now on a coastal kingdom. So it's a kingdom that sits there on the beach, and it's like a fishing village. Basically, their livelihoods, everybody who lives there, their livelihood kind of comes from or is connected to the sea in one way or another. And the Lord and Lady and their son of this region, they live in this mansion here that I'm drawing right now. So my thought process behind this was I imagined that at some point when, settlers first came to this area, they first came by sea, that when they landed here on the shore or washed up on shore, however that worked, that they probably used their ship sort of as a home base. They were probably living out of it for a while they, built houses and other structures. They probably were using their ship a lot just for shelter. And I thought, well, eventually over time, I mean, if you're going to settle somewhere, this ship probably just gradually was integrated, into the community and just became a structure of its own. I imagine them building onto it, as the need arose, as they needed more space. Eventually I've got a bunch of stones around the bottom. I thought they probably would have propped it up, basically secured it, to the ground, and then gutted the inside, and of course then added all of these additions and stuff onto it. I don't know if you've ever been in like an old school or like an old government building. Like when I was growing up, my middle school had been a high school, but it had been around for a long time. And of course it had been around like pre-internet, a lot of computer technology. And so over the years, in order to accommodate, growing technology, they basically just sort of, added on to it. They had just made it work. But as you walked around the halls, you could see where they had run wires across the ceilings, and they drilled through walls, and of course they would use like those staples. I guess it's like a staple that you would use to like secure a power cord like to the wall. I mean, those were everywhere. It was really just hodgepodge together basically. And of course, as the student population and stuff grew, they had to expand outward as well. So eventually the building itself couldn't handle that many students, and so they'd taken over an annexed building next door that we would also use was part of the campus, and that one was the same story. It was caked on paint, how they tried to paint over of course it's always like those cinder blocks, right? Painted over the cinder blocks, but they'd been painted about a dozen times as fashion changed. Originally, or at least, back in like the 70s, it was like this awful orange and light blue, and then they'd painted over it, in more of a burgundy color, and just, you could just tell that they'd just been making this work for years. And I kind of imagine that's a similar situation basically with this ship, which you will see more of on the inside. I think when I do the interior, I kind of want to do it as opposed to like a big open grand space like the big manor that I drew. I'm pretty sure I have a video of that, so you can go back and watch if you want to see the manor house. But unlike that space, which is big and open and feels very airy and lofty, I imagine this space on the inside, it being a little more cluttered and cramped, and having a bunch of windy hallways and little nooks and areas, because I think that's kind of how that would work, as they have this shell to work with, and then they had to build things, inside of this shell to make it livable. And of course they're adding additions on, both vertically and horizontally, just adding these rooms. And so I imagine that the floor plan is not going to be very intuitive. I picture the floor plan, again, like I said, lots of cramped little spaces, windy little hallways, but at the same time, because it is like a mansion, and of course the Lord and Lady, they live here, I think it will have some nice stuff inside, very nautical type themed furnishings, and things also that maybe are just like a nod to the history of the place, maybe old artifacts, like pirate artifacts and things like that, I think will be inside, just sort of a nod to the history and the culture. But of course I have not done the inside of this yet. I am trying to get all of the exteriors of all of the buildings done first this time around, because I think it would be nice just to lay that all out, do a big mock-up, make sure I've got everything I need, and then do the interiors. And so anyway, at the moment I'm just doing exteriors for all the buildings, but this was one of the ones that I thought would certainly be one of the most labor intensive. For one thing, it's not symmetrical, at least, I mean, it is in a couple of places, but whereas most of the buildings in the more ritzy, rival kingdom are very symmetrical, because they have that very clean, very classic sort of style. Most of the buildings in this coastal kingdom are not. They definitely have a more dated, more aged appearance, and like this ship that's just been sort of cobbled together over the years. They don't have that same sense of pre-planning. They haven't been pre-planned, a lot of them. They've sort of just been, they've evolved, over the years. Started out as one thing, maybe a hut, and then eventually it was converted into a shop. And, a lot of these things, they are much less designed and planned, as opposed to, say, the buildings like in your rival kingdom. So it's taking me a little longer to get the exteriors drawn, but I think that'll balance out, the interiors I think will balance that out, because most of the people in this kingdom are fairly simple people who, they live off of the sea, and they just don't have a huge wealth of possessions. And so I think it's going to balance out pretty well. I'm spending more time on the exteriors of some of these buildings, but I think I will be spending considerably less time on the interiors. So I'm really hoping within the next week or so that I will have all of the exteriors done, and so I could at least do a mock-up of what the kingdom will look like as you're walking through it. And then I'll have to dive in and start doing all of the furnishings and things like that. But soon we will have 2 kingdoms done, which is pretty exciting, and so you'll have even more places that you can go and visit during your adventures. So that's about it for today. As I said before, I need a nap, so I'm not going to ramble on for too much longer, but of course, as always, if you've enjoyed this video, I hope you will be back next Friday for another one, and in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week.